So my third pregnancy was a bit of a tough one at the beginning. You know, when you've been through the two different types of pregnancies that we'd been through and not knowing what this one would bring. You know, preeclampsia is very dangerous for both mother and baby and can be very fatal. And the last thing that I ever want is obviously to lose a baby to start with. I mean, that I don't know how anybody ever copes with that kind of loss. The other thing is obviously I got to think I had two very happy, very healthy, very beautiful boys, and I had to make the decision of, you know, I need to be there for them. What could I do in this pregnancy to get as far as I could and as healthy as I could? And we sat down with doctors and we talked to them and we got some advice, and I don't know if it really did help. I don't think there's any sort of medical information out there to prove whether or not it would help, but I did do a lot of exercise at the beginning of this pregnancy. You know, I was, and I still am, overweight from what I should be for my height and everything. And part of me thinks that maybe it did help a little bit. I exercised for like the first 5 months until it got a little bit too tough for me to be carrying on with the weight of pregnancy and other medical reasons. And the beginning of my pregnancy, again, like the others, really good, really easy. Again, no morning sickness, no tiredness, felt really good, really energetic, really healthy at the beginning of the pregnancy. And, you know, again, at 20 weeks, we found out we're having another little boy. And then this seemed to be going really well. We were getting further and further into the 20 odd week stage, and I was still feeling really good. I'd had no signs of the preeclampsia, and everything just was looking really bright. Like, yes, are we gonna get through this pregnancy? Even though we knew the likelihood was that we were gonna get the preeclampsia. You know, we'd had it twice before. We were like, yeah, I don't know if we're gonna be that lucky to get away with it again this time. And we got to 30 weeks, still no sign, still no symptoms, nothing. And then I'd got to 35 weeks and I'd gone for an appointment at the hospital because again I wanted to go to a different hospital than the one I'd had my second child. So I was completely under hospital care because it was out of my midwife's district. So I'd gone from just a routine antenatal checkup at the hospital and the signs of preeclampsia, the raised blood pressure, the protein in the urine, and very, very quickly severe headaches. And I was given some medication for my headaches, and I could only take one at night before bed. That's all I was allowed because they were quite strong, but they were a little bit too strong because they completely knocked me out and no one could wake me. And my midwife decided that I needed to go back to the hospital and this needed to be looked at. So I'd gone back to the hospital and they decided that they wanted to keep me in. I was 36 weeks, something like that at this point, and I stayed in for a week. And at 37 weeks, they decided that I was at a stage where it was healthy enough for me to have the baby. You know, everything was fine, baby was healthy and happy, and that, you know, just to stop the headaches, stop anything else getting worse, we'd just have this baby. And I was happy with that. There was no reason why the baby couldn't be born healthily at this point. So at 37 weeks, we went ahead and we did another induction. And this one was different. Whereas in the others, I weren't allowed off the bed and I was kind of confined to being on a bed throughout the whole of the labour. They induced me at 5 o'clock in the evening, and I was able to walk about, go on the ball, to bounce, to start the labour off as quickly as possible. I was able to go and have nice hot baths for the labour pains at the beginning. It was a nice experience to have that, to be able to just get up and do what I want. And because I would always get a lot of pain in my back. So laid on a bed when you've got pain in your back is not nice. So to be able to move about was really nice. But then as I got into established labour, I was then moved into a delivery suite. And although I was kind of confined to a bed because I had to be on the monitor to make sure that the baby weren't getting in distress, if I did need to go to the toilet, I was able to get out of bed. But that was the only time. But that was quite nice because, there were times throughout my labour that I was able to get up, and it made it just that little bit easier. And we just made the decision, of me and my partner, that he would go home. Because obviously going through this before, knowing that there was not really any reason to have to convert to an emergency section, but even if we did, he was able to get there quite quickly. My parents were on standby to look after the boys, but that it would probably be quite a long process, as my first labour was. So then at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was about 5 centimetres dilated, and they decided that they were going to break my waters. And knowing from past history that from the moment they break my waters to the moment of wanting to push come quite quickly for me. So I made the decision at that point that I wanted them to phone my partner and get him back to the hospital. So he managed to get there for about 4:15. And at this point, I think I was about 8 centimetres, 9 centimetres dilated, roughly around about there. And at 5, or just before 5 o'clock, I was ready to start pushing. And once, obviously, midwives were ready and everything set up, I was finally told to start pushing. And within only 3 pushes, my boy was born at 5 o'clock, weighing £6, 5 ounces. So a good weight, very healthy, seemed nothing wrong with him. I was able to hold him straight away, and we were taken within about an hour or so. Once everything was sorted and a bed had come available for me up on the maternity ward, I was taken up so that we could wait for the doctor to come round. And it was looking at this point quite hopeful that we could then just go home that day. So we waited, and eventually the doctor come round, and everything for me checked out fine. I was perfectly able to go home. But when they checked the baby's oxygen levels, they were a bit low, and his temperature was a bit low. And they thought that maybe he had some kind of infection and that he would have to stay in for 48 hours so that they could take the bloods and give him antibiotics whilst they waited for the results. So that was all done, and we stayed in for 2 days. And to me, he seemed perfectly fine, like there was nothing wrong, that maybe his levels were just low because of the very fast delivery, as that can happen sometimes. And as it turned out, that's exactly what it was. He'd had no infection, no nothing, and he was a perfectly healthy baby boy. And we were finally, 2 days after he was born, able to go home and be a family. So again, yet another completely different experience, and a nice experience. And part of me hopes that this pregnancy will be just as nice as my third pregnancy, just as easy. Although I will do a separate video talking about this more, but the way the beginning of this one's going, maybe it won't be. But thank you for watching. Please, if you are interested on how the rest of my pregnancy goes, please keep an eye out for more videos. Please subscribe and like if you did like this video. If you have any questions, please just leave a comment below, and I will try and answer as best I can.